Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alliance Group podcast. We have Dr. Amy Hymes in the studio this morning, and thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Hymes.
Well, thank you, Sam. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so you actually live, you have a home in Atlanta, but you're also in D.C. How much time do you split 50-50 time or
50-50 right now? But let me tell you, I am DMV. That's my area. I am a member of the Life and Annuity Wealth System, and we are doing things out in the DMV, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area. So this is second home. I'm enjoying the good weather in the winter months. Sort of tired of the snow, so that's why I'm here.
Well, it's you happen to catch us on a good week in Atlanta.
Yes.
The weather can be a little bipolar this time of year, but it's been really nice this weekend. So. Yes. As you know, as a resident here in Atlanta. So we were talking earlier and kind of catching up about your business and kind of your story. And I truly believe that the one thing I love about these podcasts is bringing different agents in and learning more about their background and kind of how they arrived here in the financial services industry and, in the living benefits business. So you have this amazing story that started as growing up in Charleston, correct?
Yes.
Tell us about your childhood and your upbringing in Charleston on Johns Island.
Yes, Johns Island, South Carolina. So I grew up on an island, Johns Island in Charleston, South Carolina.
Which was very small community. Back then
it was a very small community. Today, Charleston is up and coming and popping. Johns Island. Yeah. I mean, people are moving there from all over the country because they love the country feel, the slow feel, and it's beautiful.
It is gorgeous.
It's a beautiful place to raise your kids.
As we discussed,
place,
my sister and brother-in-law and my niece and nephew live in Johns Island.
Which I was so surprised.
Right.
Johns Island, when you said, I'm like, you mean Charleston? Johns Island. Yes. So a lot of people are moving to the island to experience that calmness and Southern hospitality. I miss it a lot. I've not lived there for over 20 years, but that's my home. Yeah.
So your father growing up in Johns Island, what was the experience like back then in that deep South, growing up in that area of the country?
So I was born and raised, and I know I probably look a lot younger than I am, but I was born and raised in the 60s. So if you can think back and remember what was going on back in that time. So I'm just so blessed because my parents were raised during the civil rights time, Jim Crow era. And if you can think back, and if anybody don't know what that was about, you need to check your history. But the piece that I am so proud of is because my father specifically experienced so much of that firsthand, but in our home, hatred was never, ever allowed. He was just a big proponent of treating people the way they treat you.
Right.
And, but being raised during that time, he wasn't able to get the education that he really wanted. So in our home, he really pushed education.
Right.
And that was just a big thing. Education can take you out of this situation. And
that's your way out.
Yes, that was my way out.
So
yes.
you are obviously you have your doctorate. You got your master's in business.
Yes.
And then you got a doctorate in organizational psychology.
Yes.
Which is really interesting.
Interesting. So I always had this dream that I wanted to be a psychologist. When I first went to school, I was going to major in psychology, but then I did an analysis and realized how much school was needed right away and how much psychologists got paid. So I quickly changed my major to business because I said, I have to make some money and make some money quickly. So
Absolutely.
I switched it and majored in business with a minor in psychology.
Gotcha.
So I switched it. So got a degree in business. I actually, when I graduated high school, went off to a school about 3 hours away, and I was living my life, right? And my mother passed away. and which was so sad as a young person, as a teenager. But we were such a close-knit family. Both my sister and I were in college at the time. She was a senior. I was a freshman. Actually, I had just started my sophomore semester, and I'm like, no, one of us needed to go home to help my dad out with my two younger brothers. So my sister, we are going back and forth. Who's going to go? I'm like, no, you have to finish school. So she stayed in school, finished up. I went back home to help out. And then I was out of school for a semester, and then went to the College of Charleston University when my sister graduated. So then she went back and helped out my dad until she got married. So I graduated from Charleston University with a degree in business.
Right.
And then from there, after I got done, I wanted to see the world, Samuel. So
you joined the Air Force.
I joined the Air Force. Actually, I was in the Air Force while I was in college.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
okay.
I joined the reserve because I had researched and said if I get a head start, then it will be a way for me to get a head start on becoming an officer. So I was in the reserve, and when I got done with school, I went on active duty in the Air Force. My first duty station was McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
And then from there, you worked your way out to California.
California, yes. In sunny California, I was stationed at March Air Force Base in Southern California. And out there, I was in charge of a medical recruiting division where we recruited doctors and nurses for the Air Force.
Gotcha. So it's amazing this this journey. You get married out in California, is that correct?
Yes.
Then divorced in California, moving back to
the East Coast.
East Coast.
And so my goal wasn't originally to move back to the East Coast, but I was at a medical conference, and at a physician medical conference, and had spent the week right next to a company, and she said, "Oh, you are just such the sweetest person. Oh, if you ever decide to get out of the military, give us a call." I said, "Well, for a matter of fact,
actually,
I
was thinking of that.
I was thinking of that. So I followed up with her, and long story short, I accepted a position in Northern Virginia with a Nova healthcare system, and I was the director of healthcare recruitment. Wow. And so I moved from California to Northern Virginia, and not even realizing at that time how close it was to D.C.
Right.
So this was over 20 years ago. But so that's what got me to Northern Virginia.
So now you're in the Virginia area, and tell me about how you went back to school and got your master's at that point.
Yes, so I was in the healthcare recruitment field, working for, like I said, a Nova healthcare system, and recruiting people for the system. And I decided I'm going to go back. Oh, have some free time. Let me go back and work on my master's degree. So went to school nights and weekends, got my master's degree, but in business, right? Because I'm still thinking I have to increase that income. I love numbers. I love business. So got my master's degree in business administration, because I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to start my own business.
Right.
So that was one of the main reasons. So did that went back to school, got my degree actually in 2000, got my master's degree. And I think that was the year I launched my consulting business. I just took the same thing I was doing for these companies and started doing
your own business, your
own
side
business. Yes. So doing consultancy, doing recruitment, and that was back then. And so did that for many, many, many years, and here we are.
Yeah, here we are. So you eventually, you were always interested in psychology, right?
Yes.
At some point, you go back and you actually get your doctorate.
Yes.
And the doctorate was in psychology, clinical psychology.
So here's the story with this.
Please.
This is a story in itself. So I finally, my business is doing well. So I said, I finally have the time to take off or go to school full time, work part time. I can afford it now. So I'm going back to school. Now, remember, I said I was interested in psychology. Well, at that time, I only knew about clinical psychology. So I thought I wanted to work as a clinical psychologist, which a clinical psychologist works with people who have mental struggles,
Right.
mental health issues. So got accepted into a school in DC, and I'm in school, and first semester is going really well. Second semester, we started doing clinicals, and they're like, Amy, you're struggling. I'm like, well, what am I struggling with? You're struggling with empathy. I'm like, I'm empathetic.
What do you mean? I'm an empathetic
I'm
person.
empathetic. They're like, well, let's see if we can put it in another way. You're rushing the patients. I'm like, yeah, let's talk about that. We've been talking about the same subject for 2-3 weeks. I'm ready to go on. I'm like, I'm about, let's set a goal. And
trying to make progress
Make
here.
progress. And they're like, you can't do that. So
That's really interesting.
Yes, isn't it interesting? So about 2 more weeks, I got called in, and I see like 2-3 people coming in. I'm like, what is the problem?
Mm-hmm.
So they start speaking with me. They were like, well, we don't quite know how to let you know this, but you are not doing really well in the clinical psychology fields. Carl Rogers says you can't rush the patient. If it takes 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 months, 2 years, be there with them.
So you were just trying to you were like, look, I'm just trying to progress from problem state to solution state.
Sam, that's what I'm about. I'm like, let's get this thing done.
And they're like, whoa, that's not how clinical psychology works.
That's not how clinical psychology works. So
that's more organizational psychology.
Now, so then they said, well, but what we want to recommend to you, maybe you're interested in organizational psychology. I'm like, what's that? They're like, well, with your business background, there's a field of psychology called organizational psychology where you can be a corporate psychologist and you work within organizations and you help people get from where they are now to where they want to go.
Which is what you were trying to do the whole time.
Yes. I'm like, oh.
That sounds like a good idea.
That sounds like a good idea. So I got into that program and learned, really looking at goal setting and mastering the mind and behavior change and transformations and really getting people from where they are to where they want to be. And, just the business side. And I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. So I finished that degree and graduated with a PhD in organizational psychology. Thank you very much.
That's fantastic.
Back in 2008. And I took that degree and what I learned, and I just started working with executives on the leadership development side. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say that was my area of expertise in my PhD program.
Right,
yes.
Which is executive leadership training, correct?
Yes, executive and leadership development.
Gotcha.
Yes, so that was the area. But remember now, I always had a desire for finances and business because that's
numbers always
interested me. So I always on the side did seminars, and I'm pulling people aside and let's talk about your budget. Where's your budget and finance? So that's how I got into financial literacy. That was always my way of giving back. I was doing really well on the corporate side, so I would just have seminars and workshops and teaching people on financial literacy.
Right.
Yes.
It's really interesting. So that kind of leads us to where we are today. You taking that experience as someone who is executive coaching, right? Taking your love of numbers, and also taking your passion for the Black community and helping them, and you combine these things together, and what you have is your practice today. Which let's actually talk about that. So you work to help Black Americans figure out how they can be better. I almost think of it as everyone's an executive of their own household, right?
Absolutely.
They're all running their own household. So tell me about your practice.
So let me explain this in a way. So as I said, I specialize in executive and leadership development. And as I'm working with these CEOs and executives, I often notice that a lot of people didn't look like me. And it was okay. I was making a name in the field, and I just said, I thought about my dad and his struggles and what he always said, always be willing to give back and help your people. So I just said, I looked at myself and I said, what can I do? What can I do instead of being a part of the problem? What can I do to really move my community forward? So I just said last year, I decided to really be the voice and step out and say, I am going to raise my hand and said, I want to train and educate my people, African Americans, to help build that bridge, the bridge, that wealth gap that's out there. And let me share something with you, Sam. I just pulled some statistics, and I just really want people to know this. Here are some statistics on generational wealth in the African American community in the U.S. Listen to this. In reference to the racial wealth gap between Black and white families nearly tripled between 1984 and 2019, according to the Institute for Policy Studies. Can you believe that?
That's going the wrong way.
It's going the wrong way.
This is from the 70s to today, which you would think, hopefully we've made progress in this country. That shows us going pretty rapidly, actually,
going
in the wrong way.
But that's not it. Not it. Listen to this one in reference to intergenerational wealth transfer. Did you know that only 8% of Black families received an inheritance? Now, I know I didn't, and that's why I want to be a part of the solution, compared to 26% of white families, and that's according to the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finance. Can you believe that?
I absolutely cannot believe that. So these are the kind of things that you're trying to correct.
Absolutely.
And do your part.
Do my part, and just something as simple as having the right policy, where if something happens, that you can leave generational wealth to your family. It's not something that you have to be wealthy to leave generational wealth, but you just have to stop. Someone just has to stop today and speak to the right person to educate them and know that they can take actions today. Maybe not go to Starbucks, for example, or not look to buy a pair of red bottom shoes or whatever that might be. It just means maybe looking at your spending and saying, oh, wow, if I can just slow down just a little and listen to what Dr. Amy is saying and just redirect some of those funds into a tool that can help them later and leave generational wealth, that we can start to make some changes, right? I believe wholeheartedly, and this is again what my father told me. He said that we have a responsibility, to take care of our children and our children's children. Now, he wasn't able to do that for me financially, but what he gave to me was so much more important, and that's why I'm here today, is the knowledge. Use the knowledge. Knowledge applied is so powerful. So I'm saying to everybody who's hearing this information today, if you look like me, let's make a difference. We can make a difference by just taking some small steps in the right direction.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's obviously the average African American has, unfortunately, more to overcome than, let's say, the average white American. But what you're trying to do is to help give them the tools that they can to overcome that as much as possible. Education is empowerment.
Absolutely. It's empowerment. So we have the tools. And not only that, when we look at ways to build wealth, we know that having business ownership, for example, is one of the ways that we can move ahead. So listen to this. In reference to business ownership, again, from these statistics, it says Black-owned businesses accounted for approximately 9.5% of all U.S. businesses, while representing around 13.4% of the total population. That was according to the U.S. Census Bureau. So when you look at those numbers, even as we're talking right now, we have a way. My agency, we're always looking for people to join us. We're willing to pour into you and train you so you can have a business and create a legacy, right?
Absolutely.
And we all know too, now this is my business side speaking, if you have that W-2 job and you have a business, you get to save a lot of money and get Uncle Sam out of your business, right? Because when you have, when you are a W-2 employee, you get paid and Uncle Sam takes his portion before you even see your paycheck. But I know as a business owner, I'm so happy to say, it's a way to legally get them out of your business a little, right?
That's true. Because that 1099 income is a little more. That
1099 income is, and what's more important is you get to spend what you need for your expenses, and you only pay taxes on that small portion that's left over. And that's a major piece that I think a lot of people are missing. So again, we have a way, something as simple as somebody is willing to pour into you and train you how to set up your own financial business. Where are you going to get that? Because college these days are very expensive. A certification, $10, $20, $15,000. And we said we're going to pour into you so you can have a business of your own. This is the way that we can really eradicate this thing and build that gap.
It's an incredible opportunity, and so you're doing this, and you're taking on this big responsibility. Like you said, putting your hand up. You're not just putting your hand up for clients to come and ask you for help. You're also putting your hand up for people who are interested in joining you and helping you in your crusade to come. And I think that's fantastic. So anybody watching that would like to help absolutely should reach out to you.
Absolutely,
and we have all the tools that you need to start your own business.
Yes, we do. And while you are starting your own business and growing your own business, you are helping families. I am helping families. That's what makes me smile. I know that I am a part of the solution now. I'm helping families. We are protecting families. I know that a small policy to start out with, right? That you can protect a family if something happens, someone gets sick a year later, it doesn't have to financially devastate the family, right?
Right.
With a small policy that you can get today that can help and save your family tomorrow.
So we're talking about living benefits here, basically, which is, it's something that Alliance Group specializes in. I know it's something that you're very passionate about. A new kind of life insurance that your clients don't have to die to use. So one of the things that's so important that you were talking about that is important for people to do is to make sure that they have protection in place. That's the financial foundation, right?
Right.
Talk about how important having living benefits life insurance is as the very first step in building that financial sandcastle.
So if I may, Sam, may I tell you a personal story?
Please
Let me share something. This is so near and dear to my heart and sad. I have been helping families, protect families for a while. And I have two younger brothers. And I had shared with my younger brother, like, please get some living benefits, just in case something happened. He was healthy and fine and didn't think about it. And years later, for a matter of fact, let me go back. I had even said, I'm willing to pay for the policy. But again, an adult has to sign the application. He never did it. Well, let me tell you what happened. A few years later, he got ill.
No, I'm so sorry.
He got ill. But that's not the worst. He passed away. And my heart is so sad, one, because I lost my brother, but I want to dedicate this to my brother Gerald, who me and my sister, then we had to pull together to give him the burial that he deserved.
To honor his wishes.
To honor his wishes. And I'm saying that no family should have to go through that. If you can just stop right now and say, you know what, I would not want that to happen. Right. All because you didn't stop and sign a piece of paper to protect yourself and protect your family. Right? Because if you don't, we see too many families. And I want to say, I'm speaking now for the African American community. We see too many families. I've contributed to a lot. GoFundMe. We have to stop it. We really do. We can do better. We have to stop it. That we can just say right now, I'm going to call up Dr. Amy and I'm going to allow her to help me and get into an affordable policy for you. I'm not going to push anything on you that's super expensive, but you're going to say today that I'm going to make a change and I'm going to protect my family. And today is the last day that anybody in my family would have to use GoFundMe.
Yeah.
Right.
It's something that we've talked about a lot at Alliance Group. This, GoFundMe has kind of become this safety net underneath our failing healthcare system, because the first place people have to go when something happens, whether it's an illness or an unexpected death, is you see that GoFundMe pop up.
Yes.
The stats are, as we kind of explored this past January in Living Benefits Awareness Month, that GoFundMe first of all, it just doesn't work.
It doesn't. It
does not work. The stats are under. I think it's under 10% of GoFundMe's ever reached their funding goal. So it is something that has to stop. What you're trying to do is help people put the plan in place so that they don't leave their loved ones in those desperate situations.
Absolutely. And not only that's if you pass away, but what's important too is while you're healthy.
Right.
While you're healthy to get some coverage. So in case something does happen to you, with the healthcare system today, people are not dying from cancer and these serious illnesses that our grandparents probably passed away from. You're not dying. You're probably going to live. So that's why this tool is so important, because now you're not just looking at leaving something in case you die. You're looking at having something to help you in case you live.
Absolutely. Yep.
Isn't that something?
It's crazy. The living benefits just becoming more and more important. We all see the numbers on medical bankruptcies.
Yes.
They've been climbing, over the past 10 years since I've been here at Alliance Group.
Yes.
It's becoming more and more commonplace, not less. So the need for living benefits today is stronger than it's ever been.
Yes.
And again, just that it's that very crucial foundational thing that you just have to have. Get this first. Get protected first. Make sure your financial household has a foundation, and now you can help people start building on that from there.
So that's one of the things that I do when I'm working with someone. I'm going to say, I want to pour into you, right? So I do a free financial analysis so we can see, where do you have to move your monies around? Because the average person can afford this. I'm telling you, you can afford it. Maybe you have to shift some things around, or maybe you realize that you have all of these subscriptions going on that you've forgotten about. And that's what I do for you for free, is work with you. Let's do this financial analysis. But I tell everybody, before we go to phase 2 or anything, the first thing is I'm going to do my part, and I'm going to get your family protected. So I'm going to say to you, let's start out by having just a basic, inexpensive policy, which might be a term policy.
Sure.
Once we figure out where your money is hitting, then we can move that into a tool that can help you to grow your money, baby.
Absolutely.
And that's the big piece there. So let's start out and get you protected. And then let's get a little fancy and see where we can move some things around and put some money into a different tool that'll help you grow your money.
Yes, which is the ultimate goal, right?
Yes.
And now the one thing I'll say there is that there are numbers released every year that show that everybody who doesn't have life insurance, generally speaking, they drastically overestimate what the cost is going to be, which in turn prevents them from getting life insurance because they never reach out because they assume that it's going to be expensive.
Yes.
What you're saying is true. You can fit in almost any budget some sort of life insurance protection.
Absolutely.
So that should not stop somebody from reaching out to you. You will work with somebody with their budget, whatever that budget is.
Yes, we're going to find something for you because, again, the goal is we want to make sure your family is protected.
Absolutely.
Make sure your family is protected, because the point is, if you pass away, you're gone, right? So you're leaving all of this burden on someone else. But if you don't pass away and you get sick, you are the one here that have to face this. If you're in the hospital or you come down with some type of illness and you can't work, now you're stressed out about when I have to get back to work, or short-term disability ends in this time and long-term disability. What if you just said, I'm going to make that call. I am going to call Dr. Amy today, and she's going to help me to get in one of these policies. And just think about it. Now, we're not talking doom and gloom here, right? We're talking factual things. People get sick.
People
get sick. It happens, but people are not dying. So if you can just make a change and say, no, I want to be different. I'm going to be the exception. I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to take action today and place that call and get myself and my family protected. In case something happens to you, your spouse, your kid, whoever you are protected, that you can sit back and say, you know what I want to concentrate on? I am going to concentrate on getting this person healthy. Having the funds to take care of the costs. Not worrying about, family medical leave will protect your job for 12 weeks, but that's not associated with money.
Right.
It's just job protection.
Yep.
Right. And if you go on short-term disability, that's only 60% of your pay. Long-term disability goes into 66% of your pay.
Right.
Wouldn't it be great to have something like this where the insurance company is going to figure out what your portion is, right, according to your illness, and just send you a check? And I know sometimes I hear people say all the time, that's just too good to be true. But it's factual. It's real.
Yep.
And people are surviving and using these funds on a daily basis to help help them out and lower that stress. And if you're sick, that stress level will really, that's probably what take
Stress
a lot
kills.
of people off. Stress kills.
Yep.
Yes.
And financial stress is a huge thing. So
Yes.
that's something I always say to people is, obviously if you suffer a unexpected, they're always unexpected.
Yes.
Heart attack, stroke, cancer, something like that. You are in crisis mode, right?
Yes.
Your body's fighting, let's say, an internal cancer. What is the worst thing that you could possibly do in that scenario is to heap a bunch of financial worry on top of
Yes.
that already horrible situation. So living benefits really do, something as that, as someone who owns living benefits, I know you do as well.
Yes, of course.
It truly, you can't overstate the peace of mind that it gives me almost on a daily basis when I'm driving to work every day and there's some crazy person that goes past me going 95 miles an hour.
Especially in Atlanta.
Yeah, dude, Atlanta, these people are crazy on the
Their
interstate,
driving
right?
is
But
crazy.
every time you hear of someone getting diagnosed with heart attack or stroke or cancer or something like this, it's horrible. But this thought goes through your mind, this kind of feeling of peace of mind, because I know that I have thought about those risks. I know that they can happen. They're not going to happen to me, but if they do, I have a plan. I have prepared, and I know that if something like that happens, God forbid, knock on wood, right? I've got potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars coming to me tax-free, and I'll be able to use that to do exactly what you're saying, which is not worry about rushing back to work or paying, having to figure out how to pay the bills because my income just got cut in half. It's all taken care of because I have worked with somebody like Dr. Amy
Absolutely.
to put something in place.
Absolutely. And another thing that I'm thinking about also, Sam, in the African American community, we are big on taking care of our parents, right? My dad was my biggest fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say when my father got ill, I took care of all of his medical expenses. And when I think about how that set me back financially, but it was something that I happy, pay
of
for.
course.
And I was happy that I had the funds to do it. But I just want to say to anybody listening to my voice that there is another way. Unfortunately, by the time I got into the insurance business, my dad had already had some really
Right.
serious.
So he was uninsurable at that
So
point.
he was uninsurable. But think about this. We have an obligation, especially in the African American community. We take care of our parents, right? So why not plan now?
Right.
Why not plan now so they can be taken care of, right, in case something happens, especially if they don't have major health problems. And also, a lot of the policies today, you can even add on a retirement rider.
Right.
So that's another good thing. There's nothing but good.
Yep. That can come from
That
planning.
can come from having one of these policies, and that's why I said, please get in touch with me as soon as possible. I work all over. I am committed.
She really does.
I am committed to helping my community, so I can guarantee you, if you give me a call, wherever you're hearing this from, if I, for some reason, can't help you, we will connect you with an agent who can get you covered as soon as possible.
That's fantastic. So how would someone who either is interested in talking with you about protecting their own family, or someone who might be interested in talking to you about joining you in your crusade and maybe starting their own business and getting it into financial services, how would those people reach out to you?
Well,
Dr. Amy?
thanks, Sam, for that. Well, first of all, I put every day I do a lunchtime inspiring moment with Dr. Amy on Facebook. So I invite you to join me there. I'm just sharing.
Search for Dr. Amy on
at
Facebook.
Dr. Amy Hymes.
At Dr. Amy Hymes on Facebook.
No, I'm sorry, that's wrong. That's you too. It's
She's got so many social media.
Amy Hymes on Facebook. I'm sorry. I think that's what it is. But tell you this, you can certainly send me an email, and that's Dr. Amy at amyhymes.com, AMYHYMES.com. And I will respond back to you as soon as possible. But if you send me an email there, we will set up an appointment and see what we can do, how we can get you into something. And again, this is not just about, as I'm saying, you can probably find an inexpensive policy to cover you, but also if you're thinking about creating generational wealth is about, setting up your retirement plans. Well, we have great programs Hymes, where you can get into an index universal life policy. I'm all about saving taxes, right? I do not like Uncle Sam in my business, so I find ways to legally, go around paying all of that additional taxes. Well, you can put your money into an index universal life policy and don't have to worry again and stress out on if the market crashes or whatever, because if you have that money in there and if the market crash, you go to a zero floor.
Right. The worst you can do is 0%.
The worst you can do is 0%, right? You don't have to worry about that. So your money will grow, and if the market crashes, you're not going to lose. Isn't that wonderful?
I know a lot. They're very popular products right now because people like the idea of you never go down in an IUL. You only go up and over.
Say that again, Sam.
You never go down in an IUL. You go up and over, up and over.
Absolutely.
It's and obviously it's something that people are very interested in the current environment we find ourselves in, where a lot of people are losing money in their 401ks and things like that. So lots of value that you're bringing, and people should definitely seek out Dr. Amy for more information on all of these things that we've heard about today. Dr. Amy, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast today.
Thank you, Sam. It's been a pleasure
being
here with you today. Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Listen to this interview and more on the Alliance Group podcast.